We're going to start our meeting off tonight with the pledge to the flag. Please stand and join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, folks, to our April voting board meeting. We have a couple presentations that we're going to start off with this evening. So I'm going to start off the meeting with our food services director, Mrs. Jennifer Linsky, who is going to provide a presentation about food services. Welcome.
Thank you. Just to start, you all have my report in front of you. Just basically going over some of our free reduced numbers again. It's not a good thing, but Jackson Wald Elementary School just hit the 43 percentile for free and reduced eligibility this month. I did just, because we hit that 43 percentile, I just did apply for a breakfast grant through the PA governors and PDE. So hopefully they did receive it. So hopefully we do get some monies to help expand breakfast at Jackson Wald Elementary School. Overall, our district is about 29% free and reduced. Just going through some of the numbers for each of the school. Reiffton is currently at 31%. Owaton Creek is at 22%. Lorraine is at 32%. Once again, Jackson Wald's 43%. The senior high is at 26%, and the junior high is at 27%. So you can see our need to expand some of our breakfast programs and just make sure that the students are aware that we do provide breakfast and lunch daily for those who need that.
Excuse me, can you tell me what kind of communication occurs to ensure that they are aware that we have the program?
We do have it, actually I had like little signs at Lorraine, they have them sitting out front that we do have breakfast there. With some of our grant money, I did buy signage to put in the buildings at Owaton. They have this really nice sign that does state that when they come in the building. It is on our website. We did send out a newsletter in the beginning of the school year with a little blast just to provide that, to let them know that we do have breakfast and lunch. Also, along with that, I'm going to present School Cafe then in a little bit because there's some different aspects to it, not just the online payment. You can apply through School Cafe on the app right for the free and reduced benefits, all in one-stop shop.
So do you know what percentage of eligible actually participate? Because that would determine the effectiveness of your communication.
Right. I'm going to say it's about 85%. I would say more lunch than breakfast. We do lose some of those students that do go to BCTC because they actually benefit. BCTC benefits because they're claiming those meals for those students. That's where we lose some of that.
Thank you.
Yes. Just to kind of go over, we mentioned about the grants. Equipment, some of our equipment's a little old. I just got an estimate for repair at our Jackson Wald dishwasher for $4,000. So this year we've hit pretty hard with some equipment that's aging, and some of the equipment with its aging we don't make replacement parts. So we're seeing a little bit of more of an expense this year. Hopefully next year we won't have that. Ann does have my budget with the predictions for next year. And just going over, I just applied for the Fuel to Play 60 grant for Reiffton. Got on board with Maggie and with Greg on that one. So we are going to move forward with that program for next year. So I'm excited about that one. So overall, I think we won 4 grants so far since I've been here in 2 years and applied for 2 more. So doing well with that. I just wanted to talk about the School Cafe. And can you put that up? School Cafe does have an app. We do encourage all parents to sign up for it. You don't have to make online payments through them, but you can see what your student is purchasing. You can also get your notifications to let them know if they have a low balance as well. But on there, it took a little time. I was entering in all my recipes and food labels through there. Not all the pictures quite fit the imaging, but for over the summer, I'm gonna tweak it a little bit more so they're all in there, but this way it's right there. A parent, a student can sign up. They can see all the items that are offered for the day. They can make their own tray. You can sit down with your student and, in the morning and say, oh, what's for lunch today? You can make a tray, make sure it meets all the criteria, and you can see the calories and carbs. I think Mrs. Hess at Lorraine, the nurse, is using it so she can check carbs on a daily basis for our diabetic students, so. If I can just call these quick.
coming up.
It's very interactive. All the students can like it or love it, and then it'll come up if you name it. So every time the menu rolls through again, it's like, oh, it's my favorite day. I love this item. So it's right there, one-stop shop. Parent can see that, and the students can as well. So then it'll also let me know if it's a hot item. Do I keep it on the menu? Is it time to retire that? Let's try something new. That's supposed to be my little hey today, but if it's not working, like I said, and you don't have to have an account. If you just want to go on to School Cafe right now and just put Exeter Township School District, our menus, we're the only one in Berks County utilizing it right now, and many of our schools do have Primero Edge, so, I know Governor doesn't this, but they don't have their menus up here yet, so, yay, we're cutting edge. So,
Not here, we're not.
If you just bring it up, you can see it.
It hasn't made it to last year.
Any questions? Sure.
So when you said that you can see what it is that they're getting, so I have something, I don't know that it's the School Cafe app, and it just lists that my son got a snack that day.
Yeah.
So this actually specifies what snack they got or not?
No, I didn't, it's very hard when you're at the cash register and I have Doritos, spicy chili, ranch. I just labeled them 75-cent snack. If not, the list would be monstrous, and to get them through the cashier line would take forever. I think I have, some ladies that work at the cashier, they would agree it takes so long. I do have, each of the schools have a list of what snacks are under that category, and going forward, we can put that on our webpage so that parents know, okay, all chips are 75 cents, or Rice Krispie Treats are 75 cents, so that you would know it's one of the two items.
I think that would be nice as a parent, because I know my boys tell me that they're snacks, and I'm like, what can you get? I'm like, you can get one thing a week, and I don't know what the choices are to even tell them. And I noticed that I was getting an alert which is nice that you give out the alerts, that all of a sudden I had no money in my account, and I'm like, how do you have no money? We didn't buy anything. He was buying a snack every single day, and I didn't realize it. So, but I don't know what snack he bought, but I know we bought a snack every day for 75 cents.
So we can do that for next year. We're developing a newsletter that we'll put on our webpage, but also possibly especially the elementary schools, they can put it up there as well to let you know what's happening this week in the cafeteria. Just trying to get more communication out
Yeah,
there.
thank you.
I'd like to ask the question, how much food do you think is thrown away in a day's time? Of the percent that we...
Well, I did have an intern last year, and she did a food waste study, and she actually did it at Owaton, and she did it again at the junior high. Depending on the amount of time the students are eating versus talking, if they're actually eating, not that much. It was probably 25%. Once again, it's offer versus serve. They don't have to take everything, but they do have to take a fruit or a vegetable as per the federal guidelines. So we're encouraging them to take just what they're going to eat. Most of the time we do encourage them, if it's a prepackaged item or an apple, to take that home with them so that they're not wasting.
Do we do any composting?
No.
Have you ever checked into composting?
Yes. There's a lot of regulations. I know we've discussed this before, but there's some ordinances you have to do, but also the cost right now, and around here we don't have a farmer that would come and haul it and the waste management part of that.
Oh, how many farmers have you contacted?
There's actually a website on there, but they're not local around here. There is a program through the USDA and they have a webinar on composting and, trying to get it started. It's just, at this point, I don't think it's feasible with our budget.
I was reading where the Philadelphia School District is doing something as far as recycling, I think, the food trays or something.
They got composite, yes, the trays, I think it was a grant that they received for that.
I don't know, but I saw that they were, and I was wondering if we could look into that, or if.
I did look into the silverware part of it. It is more expensive, so that would, if, the cost would go out to the parents then, into the meal price. So that just depends on the thought process on that. So we can explore that again. I was hoping not to raise lunch prices for next year, kind of keep a year.
But I think if we can recycle rather than put it in the landfill, it's a lot better.
Right, and we have been recycling. We started with the dairy grant, so we did get recycling cans for the milk containers. So we have been increasing our recycling this year. We did win that grant last year.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's okay. That's all right. We'll show you next time.
Yeah, would it be possible to get a copy of your your,
It's actually on
visual
my,
presentation?
yeah, there you go. It's
I'll-
on my, it's on our webpage.
Okay.
It's actually a demo, a
Oh, is it?
walkthrough on our webpage.
So if you could just send a link or whatever it is we
Sure.
need to be able to access it, then I would appreciate that.
Sure. And also we have our student wellness meeting next Thursday, 3:00 here, if anyone's interested. Yeah.
I just have one more question. Did you ever think about trying to do some kind of community farming with the students, maybe to grow herbs or to grow, to grow some vegetables or things like that that they could use in the, so that it's local as compared to, from wherever?
We do purchase locally, produce. That's through my, the DOD program, through the government, and I get commodity dollars to buy produce, so it is all locally grown. I do have also contact with Pottstown School District. Their wellness committee had gotten a grant for an indoor garden. So I was just spoke with her last week, so she's getting me information on that as well for a grant for that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more question, I'm sorry. Do you feel that, and I know that you're probably not in charge of this, but do you feel that the kids have enough time to eat their lunch?
As long as they come down on time and get to sit down and eat. There's a lot of other things that go on there, conversations. It's their free time, so they play around a little bit more, but
I'm just thinking like
it's-
getting through the line, because I've heard from other parents that sometimes their kids don't get to finish their meals, or, because if they're buying the school lunch, they don't have enough time to get through the lunch and then to also get their
we
meal.
have to have them in within 5 minutes of the line.
Okay.
So we're pretty good with that. It can be from the time they get to the line. There's sometimes a delay, or even after other things happen. So, but no, we have a schedule. I know we work with the principals. Maggie knows, we're like, okay, we have 5 minutes to get them through. So they do have enough time because they need that 20 minutes. They're federally allotted 20 minutes for eating purposes. Anything else? Okay,
Thank you.
you.
Thanks, Mrs. Walensky. Our next presentation this evening is Mrs. Ann Gadish. And Mrs. Gadish will be covering the 2018-19 proposed final general fund budget. Ann, I'll turn it over to you.
Anything to work today.
Thank you. working.
It's working.
I'll get started. On March 27th, the Business Function Committee met and we reviewed revenue, general fund revenue. And I did give all board members the handout, but I'm going to do a quick recap of that. And if any of you would like to meet to go over it in more detail, I'd be happy to do that anytime. In addition to what I'm going to present tonight, I would be happy to meet with any of you at your convenience to review. Thank you. So the recap on the general fund revenue. For 18-19, we're assuming a higher collection rate based on trend, 97.7%. Collections have been great. Delinquent accounts have declined, so that is the reason for the higher collection rate. Assessment appeals are also declining, although our largest taxpayer in this township, in Exeter Township, their appeal is still outstanding. Is the recession finally over? I shared last month that we have seen an uptick in transfer tax, earned income tax, business privilege tax, and investment income. Investment income rates have increased by more than 50% since last June. So all these things are being reflected in this year's estimate as well as in next year's budget. State sources of revenue for basic and special ed is $174,000 for next year. For this district, that's in the governor's budget. We're going along with that. And increases in Social Security and retirement are driven by wage increases. So this year, in a nutshell, our variance, favorable variance to budget is $718,000 approximately, and it has to do with the higher collection rate in real estate taxes, as well as the other taxes I mentioned, the Act 511 taxes as they refer to. So that accounts for a good variance, a positive thing. Is the recession finally over? Collection rate history, again, I'm using an average of 97.7%. In the next year's budget, we were using 97.25. So you can see from the trend line that collections have improved. There are fewer commercial properties and residential that are going into a delinquent status. Assessed value, this is what our taxes are based on. We did have a number of appeals over the years, large commercial appeals. Starting with the year July 1, 2018, we are losing about $8 million in assessed value, which accounts for a decline in real estate revenue of about 400-some thousand. But hopefully most of those large appeals are over. To illustrate, 2012 we had 185 appeals, 2018 we had 54. But again, we did take a hit with a reduction in assessed value. So the revenue for 18-19, no tax increase, it's about 185,000. Locals going down because of what I mentioned about assessed value going down. Basic ed, special ed, a little bit of an increase there, and retirement reimbursement rate. Because wages go up, so Social Security and retirement are reimbursed at 50% to the district. Again, I went through that quickly, and again, I'd be happy to meet with you to go through it in detail. Expenditures. We're going to look at several tables here based on our major objects of expense, and I will highlight major changes in this year's budget, as well as what's in the 18-19 proposed final budget. To get started, looking at where we were at the preliminary budget. The board did not adopt a preliminary budget. We adopted a resolution to stay within the index. But we looked at the numbers. You have to look at the numbers. So since January, we've met with staff, Dr. Phillips, Dr. Winters, and principals and all supervisors, went through all the budgets, went through the staffing requests, and wages and benefits we reduced by about 900,000. Non-payroll, meaning your supplies, equipment, a variety of different things, reduced that about 281,000. Looking at the table of expenses by major object, this was the current year final budget. This is the estimate. This pink section here, the expenses will be about 1.4 million less than original budget, and I'll explain why in a minute. Proposed budget, 76.7 million. Comparing this year's estimate to next year's budget, an increase of 3.6 million, or 5%. One thing that we have to do is really look at our enrollment, because that really drives the staffing that you need as well as supplies. But I wanted to highlight this, that our enrollment is declining slightly. We are graduating out the higher class sizes, and the classes coming in are around 265, 272, but we do have bubbles. And it's very important to look at the class sizes, especially at the K through 4 at this point, and 5, 6, to address these bubbles. So the new staff and open position requests at the current time are listed here. The teachers that have been requested, behavioral specialist, junior high autistic support classroom opening up. I have one item identified as either secondary or elementary. As we look at the numbers at the elementary especially, and where we might need an additional teacher because of these bubbles, in particular buildings too, but also senior high has requested additional staff as well, but it is difficult to add new staff because you'll see later we are at a deficit spending. We will add autistic support aides, and we're proposing a general maintenance in the facility area. We also have an open administrator position, which is part of the budget. So salary amount 344,000, benefits 286,000, for a total of 629. That's in the proposed final budget.
And is that the high school principal position?
No, that's the cyber coordinator position.
Can we talk about that? Do we have a plan for cyber?
Yes, I don't know if are you ready to talk about that at length, or? Yes, the cyber program coordinator.
Yeah, I think Dr. Miller can speak to that, but I think she said we're gonna run through a trial.
Pilot.
Yeah, pilot thing for come February or something of next year. Is it February or is it earlier?
Around that time, but we need someone to shepherd the program
Yeah.
through.
And then once we have a coordinator, then I guess it's gonna get up and running sometime next year. And we hope then to bring students back into Exeter rather than them going out for their cyber education, which, as we well know, cyber schools are all failing the students that go there, right?
Not
Dr.
all,
Miller?
Pat, that's not fair.
I said
Most.
most, I didn't say
Nope,
all.
you did say all.
Okay,
Generally, students fare much better in our district.
right. Absolutely, absolutely.
So,
That's what I know. But I'm going to ask you, Ann, when we were at one of the forums, especially at Jackson Wall, where they have so many students that are, living in poverty, the teachers there were asking. They said they needed more counselors because school counselors because the students are not getting on the right track. And they also said that they needed emotional support teacher there because they had one and they lost it somehow. I don't know when they lost one. But are we going to be filling those positions, those two positions, helping with counselors, even at Lorraine and and at Jacksonville, they might be able to share a counselor?
That was not a request that we received from the administration.
Oh, the principals didn't?
We did not get.
I guess it was the teachers that asked for that they said they needed it badly. But, well, I don't know why, I mean, I don't know why principals didn't ask for it if the teachers thought they needed it. I don't know how that goes up the line to the principal. Do they usually?
We got a list of requests from all the administration of new positions.
We do request it in the fall.
So it was in the fall before we really started to have some of our larger discussions around security, especially in light of Parkland, because I can specifically remember Mr. Flame and Mr. Artie both standing here and saying, even if we got more hours with our current staff person, that would be helpful. So I'm just surprised, and I understand that they weren't on the request, but is that something that we'd be willing to look at? Because that's something that I'd definitely be interested in looking at.
We are getting more hours from Karen.
That's the staff coordinator. That's the staff
Yeah,
coordinator.
so is that broken out in this budget then?
That's not, that's more of a contracted budget, that's not
Okay.
part of, it is kind of in here, but that's not part of positions. It's
Yeah,
not one of
fair.
the positions.
Okay.
So we do have added to the budget, we have, to add 6% more time to all of our elementary programs, K through 6, for those staff coordinators.
Okay, and is that four, I'm just doing this off memory, but is that 4 more hours per week or?
From memory, I don't like doing that, but from memory, I believe they have 0.5 each of the 4 buildings, the 3 elementary in Brighton, and we're going to be increasing that to each building gets 1 full day a week.
Okay. Okay, thank
Yeah, question. I'm listening to the fact that we're talking about establishing our own in-house charter school, and I remember a few years ago when we enlisted Brandywine to put a Exeter branded charter school together with the sole purpose that we were drawing students back from charter schools. And I know we've had some nominal success, but I'm wondering about the investment of this and what it will do any better than Brandywine. Brandywine has a proven program. They are doing statistical analysis of how their program works. We've engaged them to work with us versus building something from the ground up and investing the dollars. I don't see where the outlay of cash for this is going to give us any more benefit, since I'm only, once again, seeing nominal benefit from having an Exeter branded program. I think if a parent chooses a charter school education for their child, they're going to decide where their child wants to go, whether it has an Exeter label on it, a Brandywine label, or any other label. I don't think that this is going to be something we should necessarily be going down the road of. If we're looking at a deficit right now, I don't think that's the avenue we should be pursuing. I think that if we work with Brandywine, we get in touch with them, we sit down, we outline what our concerns are. If we have any concerns, we indicate where we want improvements, what specific items we want. I think that would be a better opportunity for us to make successful moves forward, since we already have that system in place and a relationship with the working.
Mr. Brady, if I may, good.
I'm just totally confused with where we're going with this, because I don't think it's something the board has said yes to at this point, and I'm trying to figure out why we need this. Why aren't we going where we are?
First, we've been building it as we've gone. Secondly, to answer your point about BVA, we're not slighting them whatsoever. Our impression is our teachers are great and we can do it better with our teachers. That's why we're doing the program the way we're doing it. Our teachers will be teaching the courses, building the courses online, and I think that's the selling point to students who, for whatever reason, don't appreciate the structured brick and mortar schooling, will still get the benefit of our teachers.
I'm not taking anything away from our teachers. I think our teachers are some of the best that are in the business, and I think that's why they work for Exeter, and we want them on board with us because we appreciate everything they do. But at the same time, I think that cyber education is not just asking someone who's in front of a regular classroom then to engage in that platform. It is a totally different kind of environment, one-on-one, than when you're working with students who are right in front of you at a communication level. So I think you may be adding more burden potentially to the teachers unless you're going to be giving them more time outside of their traditional classroom to manage those students are online who may not be working on the traditional 8 to 3 schedule. Maybe they're working on another schedule because of other commitments.
If I could just touch on a couple things here related to that. I had the benefit where I was previously to build a virtual academy starting from the very beginning. And I had an opportunity to attend the technology committee meeting. Mrs. Pija was there last week, and we had representation from the high school. And one of the things that I talked about is being very systematic and taking time that as we go down this road, doing it correctly and doing it with thought, which means starting with a small group of teachers, getting a guiding coalition, talking about, okay, what will this look like? How are we going to track attendance? What kind of PD is needed in order that teachers feel comfortable developing online courses? What kind of flexibility do we have in the schedule of the high school to be able to use our own teachers and build our own courses versus having to pay Brandywine or another cyber program to use their online teachers and their online content? On April 27th, which is an early dismissal day, we have a couple of professors from Penn State Berks that have agreed to come in on their own time and just talk a little bit about how they're doing online learning. It's been made available to high school teachers if they would like to come. They can. It's not a requirement. One of the things I'm going to do that day is just share with high school teachers kind of what direction this could go in. And I do have some thoughts and a plan. This is not something where I'm thinking we just automatically next year. I mean, you have to take it in steps. You can't go K-12 right from the get-go. You got to start with a smaller grade span. I'd be happy at a future board meeting to outline all of that for the benefit of the board so that they can be more informed in terms of decision making. But I just wanted to kind of assure the board a little bit that there is some thought being put into how we're going to approach this. I have been fortunate to have a variety of experiences that know the kinds of pitfalls that you encounter along the way. But in the end, when done correctly, when you're building your own courses on your own LMS, and we use Schoology, and you're using your own teachers, it's a better product and it saves money in the long run. I'm not going to say that there aren't some expenses on the front end, but it's a much more cost-effective approach than paying an outside vendor to use their teachers and use their content.
So just out of curiosity, when you talk about it being cost-effective, has anybody developed a pro forma for the build-out of this program?
Not yet, no.
Because I think we'd want to see that so
Sure.
that we can see what the investment is all in.
Sure, absolutely.
And has this gone through curriculum committee at all yet? We had a discussion through curriculum.
No.
Isn't it true, Dr. Winters, when you had this program, that the amount of students that went to like Pennsylvania Cyber or one of those others decreased, and they came and stayed in our school?
We did over the span of 6 years, we reduced our cyber numbers from about 112 to about 55.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we stopped students currently in the building, those that may have previously wanted to leave, from going. The biggest reason that it hasn't gone to curriculum committee at this point is because we're still very much in the kind of the big picture planning stages, and there isn't something specific that we're requesting a vote on at the board level. This is planning, much like we would do planning in other realms of curriculum.
Okay.
But there is a request for a $110,000 salaried position. So, I mean, it's a pretty significant request, for next year. So I think that, there is a request on the table for the program, and I think that, the board should have, understand what that role is going to be and why that position would be more important right now versus,
Fair enough.
sort of more thoroughly going through curriculum development or whatever that process is, so.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'd also like to speak, just in this case, this is at least, I don't want to speak for everyone on the board, but completely new to me as the chairperson of the curriculum committee. And I'm quite taken aback and a little disappointed that this is the first I'm hearing of this.
You haven't heard about us talking about Sabbath school?
Not for any position.
Can I
Actually,
just
Jess,
clarify
we have-
something?
We may have spoken about, but you may not have been on board.
Because
It's been coming for a while, we haven't, you know, just because you haven't heard about it.
I haven't
doesn't
been
mean-
addressed for a $110,000 position.
Can I just clarify? This
Thank you.
position has been open the current year. It's the former Don Kramer position, and, you know, we've had the discussion, are we going to fill it? We didn't fill anything this year, but let's keep it in the budget. It's not a new request, I indicate it's an open position. Maybe it could be better served, in this cyber, profile. So, it's a position that hasn't been filled, you know, maybe being redirected, just to clarify that. Basically, it's an open administrative position.
How long has it been unfilled?
This would, whenever did he leave? Second year? Second year.
The request was made for the position 2 years ago, and the direction was to come back with more specifics before the board would consider it. So that's basically what we're doing right now, is building the specifics so when we come to the board for the request of the program, as well as having the position in place to actually oversee the program. Right now, we're kind of sharing it with Dr. Miller and Dr. Winters.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, but you're making a request for a position, you just said that you'd be offering specifics, and there aren't any specifics. So what we're just saying is it's sort of a little backwards. So, I mean, maybe that was intent.
Well, we weren't ready to give the specifics. The position itself, the position itself will be in next year's budget. We would hope to be able to say something in May, is what our intent was, because by April 27th, I believe, was the meeting with the teachers. I know there are 3 teachers that are going to pilot.
Right.
So we're not as fast as we could getting the program in place, but we're making small steps. But once it's in place, we do need someone to be overseeing it.
This next table is the different categories of personnel in the district. The increase in 18-19 net of new staff requests is about $1 million. That's dictated by contract wage increases. Looking at this year's estimate, we will be under budget by $465,000. And again, the one position that wasn't filled. And I'll get to that in the next slide. Okay, contract wage increases, ETA 2.7 plus column movement. This is based on what was negotiated for the current contract. Net of retirement savings, net impact to wages $617,000. Support personnel $160,000. Administrators, including one open position, $230,000. And again, I'm comparing estimate to next year's budget.
And just if we could jump back to page 13, under drivers, we see that their original budget estimate is about just about $100,000 under. So has that number then been picked up elsewhere in outsourced because of the problem with recruiting?
Yes, contracted out.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So has it been an equal trade-off roughly, or has it been more? Are you getting to that?
I'll get to
Okay.
that. Right. So again, wages this year will be under budget. One administrative position remained unfilled. Turnover in 4 administrative cabinet positions. So there was time those positions were vacant. Then you get into an under budget situation. Due to the driver situation, starting the year with 5 open routes, full-time supervisors and mechanics have been filling in. We've also contracted a non-public route and some athletic trips. So that's why the wage estimate for this year in that category is about $100,000 less than budget. Currently, there are 3.25 routes open. We've had custodial turnover and vacancies. And other category, less coaching, extended season. So those are the reasons that the budget for salary is $465,000 less than originally budgeted. Benefit increase less the new staff request, 1.5 million, for going from the estimate, to proposed final. And again, a lot of the increases in healthcare premium as well as retirement, contributions.
Excuse me, Ann. I know a number of times you come back later after you talk with the consortium and the healthcare costs come down. Have we already had that conversation, or would we potentially see another reduction there?
Well, the not to exceed rate, in February, they established a 10.5%. I've budgeted at 8.5%. I'm hoping they come down to 8.5. They, for the current year, they had a very low rate of increase due to the cash that they have on hand, and the trust has a limit on how much they can have in available funds. So artificially, they had a lower rate, but we are trending at 11% at least in claims, and it's looking like it will be between 8.5% and 10.5%. So I may be I'm hoping it'll be 8.5%, but it won't be the minor increase that we had in the current year. So that adds about $716,000 to the budget. The healthcare waiver benefit, 41 employees waive coverage, and they receive 20% of the savings to the district. Net savings to budget, $260,000. 19 of the 41 that waived, they waived prior to the contract waiver language. So the benefit is $260,000. Again, Social Security and retirement, driven by your wage increase. Retirement's going up to 33.43%. Both of these items, $756,000. X-Flex sunsets for professional administrators. Support staff will continue to receive that, but we have an accrued liability, and I'll have to look at that expense. There may be enough accrued liability to cover what we would incur for support staff next year. Retirement incentive pay for 7/18 will be $244,000. If you look back here, I budget at an amount of $385,000, and I look at those that can retire and what their retirement incentive pay would be. But this year, we only have 4 professionals, teachers retiring, and 2 administrators, 1 already retired and 1 at the end of July. So it's $244,000. The projection for next year is $309,000 based on potential retirements, those people that can retire, superannuated. So the original budget for this year is less by $325,000. Healthcare benefits, $98,000 less. We have 5 more employees waive benefits than I had budgeted, which is very helpful, obviously. Retirement contributions and Social Security, driven by wage. So if the wages are down, this expense will be down. And again, I already mentioned about the employer retirement incentive being down. The PSERS contribution rate, to give you perspective, what it has increased over a number of years for a 5-year period, starting 17-18, our cost net will increase by $1.8 million. We have commitments and assignments to help address that of about $1.8 million. Purchase professional and technical services. This is the category where we have IU services. We have our occupational and physical therapist consultants. We have our speech therapist consultants included in here. Our audit fees, our legal fees, and any technical expertise that we need. So year to year, it's a very small increase. Most of our increase, as we've seen the past couple of years, is in wages and benefits. So year to year, 25,000 increase. Looking at the current year budget, I've highlighted a couple things. in IU services up 120,000. Our early intervention costs are significantly over budget because of the students that are in that program, and we weren't fully aware of their needs. Now those students are coming into our school next year, and that's why we have the request for the behavioral specialist. And you'll see there's an increase in OTPT.
And I'm just having trouble keeping up with your here. So you talked about commitments and assignments for PESers. So that is money associated with fund balance, correct?
Yes.
Or shifting money. So we have through the years accumulated that money, and it's in a fund balance to keep us whole in funding PESers.
It is a way of the commitments for PESers for capital were made several years ago, and it's a way. And as these expenses increase, you kind of use fund balance to help pay for it and kind of ease your way into that higher level of expenditure.
Excuse me, and right, it looks like we have a $41,137 shortfall right now. Is there a way we should be transferring funds into that committed assigned fund balance for PESers to make sure we have what the anticipated need is there over the 5-year period?
And this will, we can discuss that. I'm working on the 5-year projection model, and I have to flesh out the wage numbers up here. This is just right now assuming 3%. So that number will change.
Okay,
It'll be in the ballpark.
And real quick question, under professional services, did our anticipated spending on legal fees go down at all due to the board's decision to not have the solicitor at every voting meeting?
Well, the legal fees are all lumped into this category 339. The budget was 100,000, estimate 118,000. Will they go down? Well, it's actually going up a little bit, but it remains to be seen what happens in the last 3 months. But bundled in there is special ed as well. So if you want me to carve it out for you, I can do that. If you want to see it separately, but this year I'm estimating we'll be over budget a little bit. Next year budgeting 125,000, but that's all in, all legal fees.
Are we gonna gain in that department because we don't have 2 silly lawsuits going?
2 silly lawsuits. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Okay, anything else I wanted to point out? Again, just professionals, the new classroom at Lorraine for these very high-need students will need more professional services to meet their needs. I think I mentioned all of these things. Moving on to purchase property services. Again, this is our repairs, one of the biggest line items in this category, as well as technology leases. We'll be seeing a year-to-year increase in lease amount for Chromebooks. We're refreshing 950 Chromebooks. Repair services. My estimate to budget is down a little. I mean, I will continue to monitor these numbers through mid-June, but I'm basically projecting repairs based upon our trend. There's some years where our repair costs are way over $600,000, so I try to base it on a trend. Chromebook refresh, 950 Chromebooks. These numbers will be finalized after we get a firm purchase price. Unfortunately, the pricing that Joe's getting right now is $250 to $270 per device compared to $215 that we had for this year. We're going to have to try and get some competition out there to get better pricing. So overall, our annual lease amount for To support the 1-to-1 for 5 through 12 grades is about $160,000. Other purchase services, which are contract carrier, transportation, we will be $50,000 approximately over budget because of contracting out a non-public route, contracting out a couple homeless routes, and some out-of-district placements where we were not able to do it for some reason, and some athletic trips as well. The large line items in this category are tuition. Charter school tuition, we're estimating it'll be over budget by $191,000. Our private tuition, which are out-of-district placements primarily for special needs students, at this point, I'm estimating will be under budget, but that's one that we have to watch carefully because sometimes you get surprise invoices. The BCTC tuition, which to send our students there, is $1.3 million for the current year. Next year, $1.16 million is going down because they've paid off their debt. Some news which we received in late March has to do with the calculation of the charter school tuition rate. PDE issued guidance several years ago that school districts can use their actual data to calculate the rate. The tuition rate is calculated on our expense. We calculate a regular ed rate and a special education rate, and that is what the charter schools will invoice the district for the students who attend these charter schools. Primarily it's cyber charter in our case. There was a lawsuit brought against the School District of Philadelphia by the charter schools in Philadelphia because they indicated that the public school code says the tuition should be based on budget, not on actual. So the governor's office has met with PASBO and people from PDE, and they're exploring options, legislative and otherwise, because what has happened now, we started receiving invoices from the charter schools with the rate based on budget, and it increases what we have to pay the charter schools. So regular ed, based on our calculation for actual 11.6 million, they've calculated 12.4. Special ed, we calculated 26,900, they calculate 30,000. So for this year, our charter tuition is going to be over budget. 105,000 of that is because of these rates. The other amount is because I only budgeted 70 students in charter, but we're actually around somewhere between 77 and 83.
Excuse me, and when I'm looking at that number, when we put $11,565 per student, does that account for just education classroom, or is that somehow look at our overall budget and divide it by number of students to come up with that number? Because I'm thinking, we still have heating, we have lighting, we have all the other peripherals that come with all the fun of owning buildings.
Right, there's a form called the PDE 363, which actually you list all of your expenses, but you also eliminate a number of expenses, transportation, improvements, building improvements, things that really don't pertain to the instruction of the student. So what's really bothersome is that PDE is saying that they will continue the practice of making deductions from our subsidy at the request of the charter schools. So we're basically going to have to fight for anything that we don't think is right. But anyway, I'm sure there'll be hopefully some legislative action taking place to help us out on this one. But I'm reflecting those numbers in this year's estimate and next year's budget. Private placement tuition. I mentioned less than budget. Contracted transportation will be over budget. mentioned that, and I've mentioned the BCTC tuition. Out-of-district placements, when we look at the tuition, private school tuition of 1.3 million approximately, well, we have 39 out-of-district placements. And this is just a list, and you receive this every month, where these placements are. Supplies, utilities, and fuel. Year to year, about 174,000 increase. And the current year budget will be under by 124,000. So the impact items for next year, in the supply area and textbooks, we're doing a special ed curriculum update. Their materials are outdated. There's a very big need there, 119,000. Math software to meet student learning needs, 172,000. Textbooks, calculus, physical science, 15,000. And we also have a fuel bid price increase of about 36,000. This current year budget will be under supplies under budget. We have different administrators in the math STEM area, and what they projected was actually a little higher than what we really needed this year. And utilities under budget about 53,000. The electricity savings for LED, I have not reflected in the budget yet, as I need to have some discussions with Rob and Dolphin about what that would actually, when it would actually start occurring, based on when the project would be finished. Property, which is our capital equipment, technology infrastructure, and major improvements. Year to year, we're looking at an increase of about 175,000. Current year, we're under budget about 271,000. The biggest reason we're under budget in this area is because a number of the capital projects which were slated, the whole process with working with the architect and getting things approved delayed some things. So these things will be pushed, into a future year, which is why at this point I'm still showing 625,000 in next year's budget. But again, I'm working on how to fund all the different capital projects that are on the horizon. So what is in the equipment purchases for next year? Finishing out the bus cameras for the entire fleet, devices for the math program, Chromebook sets for Ames Web platform, projector replacement. I'm still waiting for Joe Way to give me final pricing on that. Tech infrastructure, these are E-rate programs for access points and cabling, and the request was to replace the music truck. This is half the price of the music truck. The Music Association indicates that they would fund half of it. So again, I mentioned 625,000 in for various capital projects. And this is a list of the building improvement projects, which I'm showing for 17-18, which some of them have occurred, some of them we hopefully will finish by year end. Then those in 18-19, what I'm showing here, general fund commitments for capital projects were 1.7 million. So using some of those funds by the end of next year, 6/30/2019, our commitment will be reduced to 781,000. Building improvement projects, which will use funds that we have in capital reserve and capital project funds. I lumped it together to try and make it less confusing. There's 10 million in there. We opened bids on May 2nd for the projects which relate to HVAC, envelope, and so we'll know by then, May 2nd, what those actual costs will be. Right now, these are just estimates. KCBA is not handling our roofing projects. Those are being done through Tremco, and these are the three that are happening this year. So, just an estimate, in 1 year we'll spend close to $5 million on all of these projects between this year and next year. The final category is primarily debt, which is interest for your bonds, $4.9 million, and the principal payment for the bonds, $3.3 million. We also have a budget reserve, which is, all school districts have one for unforeseen things that happen. So, fund balance commitments, they are constrained for a specific purpose. The board adopts a resolution. As I mentioned, 11/12, the board established 6.6, and we've used these commitments throughout the year. By the end of next year, the balance will be down to around $2 million. So the bottom line is, for next year, the deficit is $2.3 million. And the current year will be a positive 1.1. Assuming all my estimates are accurate. I will continue to monitor them because things do change in a matter of a month or two. So I am still working on assignments. So the next presentation will drill down deeper into the assignments and the commitments as well. So the budget review continues, LED electric savings, projector proposal underway, Chromebook, finalized math software, the healthcare premium not to exceed rate at May 24th, tuition costs, charter school, saga, and I mentioned the bid open, and we'll be looking at the 5-year projection at the next meeting. So this is the timeline. May 14th, the board adopts a proposed final budget. Final budget adoption is not until June 19th. So May 8th, we'll be presenting again. In addition, going through the capital project, we'll have firm bid numbers and also doing another review of the food service. Quick look at food service. Without any price increase, it's a break even. This year we are have a loss a little more than budgeted. You know, Jen mentioned a lot of repairs, etc. So we'll look at this again on May 8th.
Excuse me again. Three things. Regarding the unassigned fund balance, for those who have been on the board for a budget cycle, that could not exceed 8%. So that's one of the reasons that I will be looking at that. Second thing, with regards to the improvements we're going to be doing on the buildings, is there any chance of reimbursement from the state on that, or is that just self-funded for everything? Sounds like I don't.
No reimbursement.
And the third thing, we had a $1 million bank account sitting out there at one point that was for food service. Are we still using it to fund the repairs for food service items?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I just had a really quick question. For a lot of the building improvement projects, do we mostly put those out to joint purchasing groups, or are we purchasing them ourselves? Because one of the things that caught my eye was the township right now is going through the process of purchasing the playground equipment, and I wonder if it's possible at all to get a better price with buying in bulk with them. It's just a thought, but I'm curious about if there's any work to look through joint purchasing for most of those items.
Well, right now, what we have out on the street, KCBA has written a specification for a couple of the more complicated playground projects. Because, maybe you can elaborate on that more, or no?
Yeah, the ones that KCBA are involved in have improvements to do with accessibility and ADA.
So it's bidding. So hopefully we will get, most of these here are being bid, with the exception of, well, I don't know if I'll go with that. Yeah, most of these are being bid. But we'll have those results for the May 8th meeting, which will have to be a special voting meeting in order to award the bids. And again, I'd be happy to meet with any of the board members to go through things in more detail at your convenience.
And I just want to, again, take the opportunity to thank you for the effort that you put into putting the budget. It is very complex, and there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of things that we have to wait on from both the state and the federal level, and we understand the frustration with doing that, but I appreciate the effort that you've put into getting us to this point, so thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Scottish.
Backwards.
Any other questions, comments?
Quick point of order. Would we be able to adjust our agenda to make the first item that we talk about the revised school calendar, and then also allow public comment on that item specifically? Because I think that might be something that maybe some of the people in the audience might want to respond to the presentation to, rather than make comments to, unless changes of, and finding out only that changes were already being made or considered in response to some of those questions. So I thought it might just be more productive to have public comment for everything not related to the calendar first, then do the calendar presentation, and then give an opportunity to invite public comment.
Excuse me, but public comments are public comments, regardless of the topic, whether it's calendar, whether it's school lunch, whether it's, I don't like the, the color of the wall. I mean, if the individuals here would like to comment on a specific issue, I'm sure we'll be willing to listen to it when it's right then. If they would like to remain for later in the evening to listen to what goes on, they're welcome to do that, but I think we'll be covering all comments from public as our next item.
Yeah, I think one of the thoughts that I had, thank you for bringing that up. One of the thoughts I had was that we would go to public comments, and then we would go right to the calendar, since I think that's probably the primary area of interest or concern. So this is a time during the board meeting where we open up the board to public comments. These can be from staff members, members of the public, and they can be items on the agenda or items that might be relevant to the operation of our public school. When you do come up, please state your name and where you're from.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Ricketts. I'm the president of the Exeter Township Education Association. Oh, I'm sorry, you got hit to the screen. Hello. There you go. Hi, I'm Mark Ricketts. I'm the president of the Exeter Township Education Association. Mr. Brady, I do like the color of the walls right now, so you don't have to worry about that.
I'm on Cal Green or Peaks.
It reminds me of the seashore, so I like it.
Mine's real hospital.
Mr. Hember, when you were in the building, you encouraged teachers to come if there's any concerns to the board meeting. That is why I'm here. I am here to speak for my members, teachers, and other members. I want to first start off by thanking Dr. Phillips and Dr. Winters. We had a very good initial conversation about the calendar. I thought it was very productive. After a few days of thinking about what the ramifications are of these changes, I have to say that we didn't agree, and that's fine, we didn't agree. And I'm here to say publicly that the association is against the changes, moving the days earlier in the calendar. We have an alternate view of maybe just an idea of what's best for students. I know we're all in this for students. A lot of teachers and myself feel that by having the students 4 days in a row, as the calendar usually is, it gives us better opportunity to develop routines, rules, elementary and at the secondary level. To bring them back for just 2 days, we don't think would be more beneficial. Other reasons that we think might be detrimental to moving this is, first of all, people have plans. And as trivial as that might sound, we saw a board-approved calendar both parents and teachers made plans off of that. And then for the second time in 2 months, the board approved calendar has been changed. And then there's other reasons for previous changes. But what are people to do that have these plans? That's our first reservation. The other thing is people have sons and daughters to take to college. They have child care. Some child carers are still in their summer program that week. The BCTC students, we don't know. I mean, there's an easy solution for these, but we don't know what would happen with those students because I don't believe BCTC starts that week. And those are some of, let me check real quick, there's a few of our concerns. Oh, and the other one is obviously student attendance. We're afraid that if parents have plans, we'll have a drop in attendance those first days, those critical first days where we need those students. I know teachers can take a personal day to take their kid to college, but if my kid had to go to college, yes, I'd want to be with them, but man, do I want to be with my students back there those first 2 days. When I get those kindergartners, I don't want to substitute being in that. And that's just one example, but our main thing is we want to know when is a set calendar. When can we make plans? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ricketts. Any other public comments?
Can we leave that on? Leave that on?
Maybe some other comments. Yeah.
My name is Ruth Benderoth, and I'm just a parent, but I've been a parent of an Exeter Township student for almost 20 years. So my older daughter started in this school in 1998, and I'm struggling this year to find some peace with how snow days are called. I did call and I left a message with Secretary for Dr. Phillips. And did not get a response. So I was a little frustrated.
I'm sorry, when did you call?
It was maybe the second time we had a non-snow day that was like it was called before, it was called off, and there was literally no snow yet. And there wasn't any snow ever that day. It was maybe February, March. I didn't write it down, but the secretary almost laughed at me. And I'm like, okay. So now I see that we're gonna possibly have school start a week earlier. And I'm just a little confused because in 20 years, this hasn't been the worst winter we've had by far. And yet it seems like it's been one of the years that more snow days have been called earlier, more conservatively. And I understand we're concerned about the safety of our students. I'm not taking anything away from that at all. I'm not suggesting that you send my kiddos to school in an ice storm or with 17 inches of snow. But my question is any snow at all a reason to call school off completely? I mean, I'm concerned that we're getting many times varying reports, which is frustrating, you know, trying to plan travel to work, trying to plan daycare, trying to plan, you know, whether or not my kiddo will be home or not. And thankfully she's 11, so to me anymore it doesn't affect as much the daycare issue. However, if she was younger, that would be a huge concern for me. I currently also have a 16-month-old who in 4 years will rejoin this kindergarten force. So I have a nice wide span of kids, and I am concerned about not just starting earlier, but starting earlier and then just canceling school because there's a forecast of snow. And then trying to plan so I don't have to request educational days to see family that lives 1,600 miles away. and then the whole spring break is canceled, you know, so it's upsetting for my kids, it's upsetting for me too. You know, I don't want them to have an extra week of summer so that we can avoid litigation, for people who are silly and, oh, my kiddo slipped, or I'm not sure why the calls have been made the way they've been made, but to call off school completely when there's literally no snow yet, even if I recall correctly, there was one of the days where it was a 2-hour delay and then still no snow had occurred and then we canceled. So I'd like to understand the process of how you come to cancel school to begin with, when in past years, you know, from 1998, looking back in my mind to now, we've had such worse winters than this, and we've had many years where we never had this many. I mean, it's almost a joke anymore as to whether or not school will be canceled, to the point where, you know, the last time school was forecasted, one of the teachers my daughter overheard saying, I wonder if school will be canceled, there's forecast of snow. Well, you know, we were only forecasted 4 inches, and I understand that 4 inches can be detrimental depending on when it falls and when it can be cleaned up. But I wouldn't expect that a forecast of snow of any amount would close school point blank. If that's going to be the case, you're probably going to need more than a week extra of school.
Okay. Well, and I do apologize for not speaking to you. If I did speak to some parents and I explained them the process. School's not canceled on forecast. School's canceled basically on the road surface. I speak to transportation. I speak to facilities. I speak to all the other superintendents in the county. We all try to figure out what is the best for students. I do, and I'm just going to say, some parents like the fact that I cancel the night before when we know there's going to be a big snowstorm. So I do that. I'll admit to that. The mornings, and this winter has not been a bad winter, as you're correct, but there has been ice involved, and that's made it a very difficult call. I sit there for hours at a time trying to figure out 3:30, 4:30, should I do it, should I do it? Other superintendents are saying the same things. And then I make phone calls, we come to a decision. We don't necessarily look at all roads, we look at the worst roads, like Churchland Road, Shelbourne. Some of the roads that are really, if it's icy, it's a concern to have kids on buses. And I apologize, but I will be conservative. I'm not going to have to make a call to a parent and say, it was icy, but I let kids come in, and I'm sorry, but we have an accident.
So I actually live directly on Shelbourne Road. It's true that Shelbourne Road is ridiculously treacherous, as is Church Road. I mean, that's hilly and all of that, but I know that the one day that we had school called off, we literally looked outside, and my son likes to watch the trucks go by. We watched the trucks go by, and there was not a drop of anything. I understand if there was a forecast of possibly, but what goes into like not bringing the kids in if it's not expected to even start until 2 p.m. and then saying, okay, well, we're going to have an early dismissal so that at least we can count that day.
Mm-hmm. And I don't remember that happening this year, but bringing students in early and then having to get them home in the middle of a storm is just as dangerous. So that's looked at as well. I mean, I'm not trying to evade your questions, but it's not as simple as just saying the storm's not coming until 2, let's bring them in and get them out. We have 3 tiers of transportation. So if we start to dismiss, let's say 12:30, 1:15, I mean, I'll be very honest with you, there was one day I didn't dismiss early, and I agonized because I looked out the window and it was coming down. Other districts did, and I thought I made a mistake. Luckily, I didn't, because the storm held out enough that we got the kids home. I mean, we have elementary students on buses at 4 p.m. So yeah, an early dismissal has to be called at 10:30 to be an early dismissal, per se. And that's early enough that it's really not a time that I can call. I gotta look into the crystal ball and say, well, it looks like I should do an early dismissal now.
And I understand hindsight's 20/20. It just seems as though any amount of forecasted snow has resulted in a snow day. you know, I'm from South Dakota originally. Man, we had snow from October until probably May, laying on the grounds, and we commuted people, everything spread out there, and it's all hilly.
I'm from the Poconos, we never had snow days that I remember, it was just start walking.
So I'm
I understand that
struggling.
we're not in where we live, and, you know, the issue is too, is, you know, the surrounding districts, Ole, Daniel Boone, Governor Mifflin, we talk more than just the county. And if it's affecting this area, the other thing is, and again, I'm not trying to evade your question, but it's more than students. We have teachers that have to drive a certain way. And if I'm not gonna cancel school and teachers are coming through other districts that did and they get into an accident, I've gotta consider staff as well in some of my decisions, primarily students. But again, this year was not necessarily snow, it was ice. And that made a lot of the difficult calls more difficult. And yes, I understand, you know, at 3:34 in the morning when I'm canceling school, because there's ice forming, 1/4 of an inch or whatever it is, by 9, 10 o'clock, maybe the trucks are out there and they're shoveling or putting down ice belt and stuff like that. If the roads are clear by 10 or 11, 12 o'clock, that still doesn't help us with trying to bring kids in or bring kids in late.
Okay.
And I mean, I know there's been discussions, if you will, of a 3-hour delay. You know, we've talked about that at the county level. There's one district that does try to employ 3-hour delays. The problem is 3-hour delays, he even closed. So it's really a difficult call. And I'll be honest with you, if it's conservative, guilty. I mean, I really don't feel comfortable when I'm speaking to facilities and transportation and they're saying the roads aren't very good, saying put kids on buses. It wasn't intentional. I did not look at, oh my gosh, another snow day, another snow day.
Yeah.
It's not how it's done. It's that day, that moment that you have to make the call, and it's not easy sometimes, but it is going to be conservative for that reason.
So I have one more comment, and understanding if you're calling for suspected ice or what have you, there's nothing you can do in ice. I appreciate you not bringing my kid in. You know, the day we had 17 inches, we're projected to have ice. But I'm just completely against starting school early in August. I mean, they're already at risk of losing their spring break, which they did completely pretty much lose it this year. For the first year, I can remember we had a spring break that was more than 4 or 5 days because many of those snow days had been built into that. My daughter was super excited and disappointed, although excited every time there was a snow day called.
I'm sure.
But just to come and start kids August 23rd, man, I almost just can't swallow that. It's fine if in hindsight, you know what, we made the calls we did and now we're gonna have to go a little bit later. We almost as parents, I think, planned that last week saying, you know, I might just not plan my vacation that week, but we really often try to get away the week before school starts to have 1 week of, hey, we're just at the beach hanging out, decompressing, and it's usually that week. You know, I don't really know what else to say about that from I don't want it, but I'd much rather have her ending up tacking on some days at the end of the school year than, hey, we're gonna go and she's gonna miss the first 2 days, first 3 days or whatever we need to do and call it an education day. We'll make it educational, but, you know, I don't necessarily know that our family vacation plans are going to change. So those are my concerns.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, I'm Robin Berger. I wanted to speak as a parent. My son is a graduating senior this year. His college move-in date is August 23rd. He's my oldest son, so this is my first one going to college. He is going to school 1,000 miles away at Marquette University. I really want to be there for him to help him move into school. I really want his 2 younger siblings to be there to see this, to see him moving into college and to hopefully feel inspired to do as well as he did throughout his high school years so that they will also be able to achieve and get into a good school. I'm really concerned about that August 23rd start date for the kids, because then I'm in the position where I have to decide between moving my oldest son into college or having my two younger ones miss their first day of high school, which puts them in a bad position if they are missing those first days. So I really am here to ask you to please don't put me in that position where I have to choose between my two children being there on their first day of high school or versus seeing my oldest son move into college. I really feel like this is a family event. You know, this is the first time one of them is going to college. It really is a once in a lifetime for them, and I just don't think it's worth it for 2 days, for a Thursday and a Friday in August. For us as a district, those 2 days just aren't as critical as they are to me as a parent, and to us as a family, being able to move my oldest son into college. So I really hope that you reconsider that early start date.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll keep this brief. I have a couple things, not just the calendar. But I just want to
It's
bring
Michelle.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Michelle Kluswitz. I live in Exeter, and do you need my address? But a couple things I just wanted to mention. You know, with the calendar, we also, and it was brought to my attention by one of my colleagues here, that band camp starts very early, and we have one of the best bands in Berks County. And we also have a lot of athletic groups as well too, football, field hockey, and everything that also start early too, which starting early with the school is going to interrupt that session as well too. But, you know, I do appreciate Dr. Phillips and Dr. Winters, all the work that they put into the calendar, because, you know, we have to go to school, our students have to go to school for 181 days, granted. And you're not gonna make everybody happy, I understand that as well too. And I think the leadership in the association understands that as well too. But, you know, I mean, I think some of the comments made by parents, they're very valid as well too. So, you know, and also I know a couple of our colleagues here are also taking their kids to school, and they don't want to miss that opportunity as well too. So I totally get that. And so I would just ask to reconsider maybe redoing the calendar a little bit, maybe working with the teachers on seeing, you know, exactly where we can, you know, make up those snow days. Unfortunately, we live in Pennsylvania, we are going to have snow. I get it, totally get it. And Dr. Phillips is doing the right thing by, you know, with the snow closures and stuff, and, you know, I think we all appreciate that as well too. The safety of the students always have to come first, always. But there, you know, I keep listening to everybody, and I keep thinking to myself, there has to be a better way that we can manage this, if we can just put our heads together and really work together on this too. That's my spiel, but for that, another thing I want to talk about is our AP Art portfolio prep class. And at last meeting, when I was here last week, I didn't quite understand exactly, you know, why the teacher was going first to the training, and then the class is going to be offered. The next day I went and talked to that teacher, and it makes perfect sense. You can't have an AP curriculum class without actually, class without actually having that teacher trained and certified in that course as well too. So, and the more and more I thought about it, I looked at my own students, and I teach special ed students. A lot of them are not they don't have those academic qualities that a lot of students do have. But I just think of one student that I have that has like this art. I mean, she's a phenomenal art student. She can, some of the things that she draws is fantastic. She would fit in to that AP class, that type of students. And when we are eliminating those type of classes, we're actually eliminating a lot of students in our school district too. So I would ask you to please approve that AP class. because it is a good thing for our students. And just so that everybody knows as well too, we have some of the strongest AP classes in Berks County. Just let you know that. I mean, our school is always ranked in the top, and I think when we work for the public school system, we should be giving our students enough opportunities and chances to be successful. Not all students are academically bound. Some are very artistic, some are very musically oriented, some are very business as well too. We need to give them the opportunity to be successful with all classes. And we are in the business of education, and that's what we should be doing as a school district. And I'm talking as a parent now, okay? I'm wearing a couple different hats. I'm a taxpayer, and which, by the way, I do appreciate this school board being very conservative with their funding, so I appreciate that. As a parent, talking as I want as much opportunity as possible for all students, and as a teacher, I want all those students who aren't necessarily academically inclined to have opportunities as well. I think that's very important too. I also want my next subject, I know I have a couple subjects here, but my next subject is last week, somebody talked about, I think it was Hunter, who talked about getting a student on the school board just as a representative. I think that's a fabulous idea, I really do. However, I also feel that a teacher needs to be represented on the school board as well too. Not as a voting person, as a student, but I think teachers have a lot of opportunity to say a lot of good things here. We are the frontline employees. Look at all the teachers here. There is a huge array of intelligence, and these teachers are passionate about what they do every day. So I think that if we're going to have a student on the school board, a teacher needs to be represented as well too. And some of you who have been on the previous school board knows that I have been pushing for that as well too. That I think teachers need to be heard, and not just in public forum as well too. So, anything else I need to mention? Okay. But thank you very much.
Thanks for your comments.
So I'd like to address a couple of issues. Mrs. Berger, with your child going 1,000 miles away, we just sent our daughter to Philadelphia. It was only 50 miles away and it was traumatic. So I hope you have the opportunity to go because it is difficult. Another issue I wanted to raise was Dr. Winters brought up last week as part of this discussion around the importance of having a place for kids to go, which is one of the driving factors behind the development of the calendar. And it didn't dawn on me till I looked at the calendar for this week, but I'd like us to take a deep dive on those kids, Dr. Winters, and look at those kids that we think need a place to go, because we do have a program called TIPS. And the school district is funding 300 TIPS memberships for this year. So if the kids do need a place to go, I'd like us to dive in and make sure those kids that you had mentioned in the board meeting last week, that we ensure that they become owners of those scholarships that the school districts are funding, because I think that will carry on what you had suggested they might need through the summer, which is that they may not find their home or where they are in the summer a place that they want to be, that they really find some connection in the school district and being around teachers and other students. So I think we have an ideal opportunity there with the TIPS program. And I would encourage, probably see Mr. Hathaway here, I would encourage if we could have that discussion, if we can target those kids to make sure that we do get them into the program under the scholarships that we have available. Okay. And then the next issue I have is as Mr. Ricketts was speaking, I was reading his letter to the board again, because he has in effect made proposed changes on behalf of the teachers to the administration, and he refers in his letter that there was a lot of discussion, and I'm just trying to understand, beyond that it's good for the kids, what else is the philosophy behind not considering the teacher recommendations as far as the calendar?
Well, as far the teacher recommendations, that came after our meeting, so we can revisit that. But when you say about why this calendar was developed, it was developed on this year's situations. people were upset that we were taking away spring break.
No, I was
People
just
were-
saying, I
No,
wasn't
I'm
saying
not-
why the calendar was developed, I was saying why was it developed without considering what the teachers recommended? That was my question.
Well, and like
Well, okay.
I saw that email with the teacher's recommendation over the weekend. So like Saturday, Sunday was the first time I heard the proposal of why don't we finish on June 11th as opposed to coming early like that. You know, we had a conversation, Dr. Phillips and I had a conversation, on the phone with Mark, and then we discussed, but that particular solution, we agreed that we would, kind of go back and look at the calendar as a whole, and we did. We sat down, myself, Dr. Phillips, Joe Way, we had that conversation on Friday, but the specific recommendation of, well, how about June 11th? The first time I learned about that was when I saw the email that was sent to the board, over the weekend.
And we had given all the options that we had considered, and one of those was for that reason. And because there was pushback this year that we went so late in June, we tried to minimize that impact. We moved up in the calendar because we didn't want to impact, again, snow days all the way through, spring break all the way through. We discussed about protecting the day before President's Day, as that not being a snow day. So we did look at all different options to try and minimize the impact that snow days, if it happened this year, would have on next year. And that was primarily why we moved up to the 23rd. If we would have moved to the 27th, then we need to gain those 2 days back somewhere. Would it be take away spring break? Something that was seemed to be sacrosanct. We didn't want to take that away. So we said, okay, what's our next option? Then it would be go all the way through graduation to that Monday. And that was something that we didn't want to have that one day on a Monday. So we didn't just say, this is the calendar. We had about 6 different options. This one just seemed to fit all the concerns that we were presented with this year.
Excuse me, I have a question. A couple of questions, actually. When you have an early dismissal day, does that count as a full education day?
Yes. Or depending on time, but yes, most of the time.
I said last month that I didn't want to see school start 2 weeks before Labor Day because frankly, I have an issue with the starting the week before Labor Day. The reason that is, I'll speak up louder without this darn thing if you want to. I think 2 weeks before Labor Day is stupid. Okay, frankly. The summer is the summer. Okay, frankly, it costs us more to air condition the buildings than it does in September. The second thing I'm looking at here is you've already built this calendar out that if I'm graduating the 6th, but my friends are still going to school the next week. I mean, why not move your graduation day to next week? No, I'm tired of this schedule's a bust. Okay, it's frankly a bust. My kids went through high school here. They never started 2 weeks before Labor Day. My kids went through 15 years of education between my daughter and my son. Never started 2 weeks before Labor Day. And frankly, we had blizzards that were 3 feet snow. Frankly, I agree with the parent that says, why did our kids have off? Because frankly, I'm at work with people with Daniel Didn't School District. Their kids weren't off. Okay, this has been a very embarrassing year regarding snow days. I don't care what you tell me about transportation safety, this has been extremely embarrassing because you have parents that are inconvenienced, they have to rework their schedules for work, they have to rework their schedules for daycare, they have to hope that their employer won't get pissed at them and fire them. Okay, that's inconvenience to our family members. We have to look at the whole body, not just what's good for a piece of numbers on paper. This is all about family time. When you take away the family break at Easter and you say, by the way, good luck with that, that sucks. Okay, there's only so much time that families have together anymore because of family commitments for work. You schedule things ahead of time. When you extend the school year without looking at the fact that there are reservations for vacations. Okay, if I plan a vacation and I make a reservation on a cruise, that cruise is not going to give me my money back just because the school district decided to have school for an extra week. It doesn't work that way. This is a failure, and I think this was a failure also.
Any other comments? Okay, I think what we can do at this point is probably move and advance the agenda to item 10D, which is the calendar discussion, and I'll turn that over to Mrs. Stratton.
Are we ready? It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the revised 2018-2019 school calendar.
We need a second.
Second.
Was there a second? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Is there a second? Give a second.
I'd like to offer an amendment to the motion.
Excuse me. Say that again.
So Pat seconded, I'd like to offer an amendment to the motion. Amend it to table until the next voting meeting in the next month.
Okay, we have a request to table, and I suppose we would take a vote on the request. First of all, is there any discussion on the request to table?
Why?
I don't think you have this.
Oh, well, let's, first of all, I'm sorry, let's see if we have a second to request to table.
I don't think you need a second.
Yes, you do need a second, right?
I'll second it.
Okay,
No, I don't want a second table.
Okay, we don't have a second.
Would it be appropriate to maybe share my reasoning behind this?
We're gonna have an opportunity for discussion.
Okay.
Okay. So, any discussion?
Well, if it's not seconded, it can't be discussed.
No, I mean, we're discussing the motion on the, current motion on the table, yeah. Current motion on the table is to approve the calendar.
Well, I would like to speak. I've been very vocal about the calendar for quite some time, and probably since the first approval of February being approved, and it was already done, and I voted no to not approve it then. I am not, I have no stock necessarily besides a community member and caring about these students, and obviously a school board member. That's my stock. But as I just can't wrap my head around it. I still cannot. Every day I think about it. No one has really approached me. I shouldn't say no one, but no teachers at all in the district. One parent has approached me, who's a friend of mine, and just asked questions. And I can't seem to answer her. I can't seem to answer my own questions. I'm really concerned. And I like seeing Jim having passion, because I've been talking about this, I feel like, since February. And I feel like, you know, that everyone keeps shutting me down. And I shouldn't say that, not everyone. That's generalizing. But I feel like, Jim, I appreciate your passion tonight, because I feel the same way. And I felt this way for months. I have reached out to Dr. Phillips, and we've spoken, and I just couldn't get settled still. I've been doing a ton of research on Act 80, on in-service days. At this point, I'm wondering why there's so many in-service days, and I'm wondering if it's contractual with the teachers' union. I haven't seen that contract. I'm sure I can at some point, but I have not. I'm not sure why Exeter is now proposing to start early and still ending at the same time. We've been told that other Berks districts are doing this. I've looked at least 4 other calendars. No one else is doing this. The only school starting earlier is Ole, and they've been doing that for 4 to 5 years, and it's a precedented early start. They're used to it. Brandywine, Harrisburg are not.
I'm sorry, Hamburg.
Who?
Hamburg.
Hamburg. Okay.
Brandywine starting on the 21st as well.
Well, again, I don't know if they've been doing that. The only district I could find besides Ole, which I did contact a retired teacher from Ole, and he said they've been doing that for years. So their families are used to it, their community is used to it. As an educator, I still can't wrap my head around the revised calendar for this year. Bringing kids back for those 3 days, two for those 2 days. But I've sat back and I'm talking this year, 2017-18 in June. I have many questions, and I think what Michelle Klusowitz said as far as there's got to be a better way, that's kind of what keeps going in my head. There's got to be a better way to be able to start school at a decent, respectable time and still end at a respectable time. Some of the questions in my mind again is, and I keep getting, I have no problem with Joe Way. I think he's a great technology administrator, I've looked at his position, his webpage was not available. But I'm not sure why Joe Way is creating the calendar. I can't wrap my head around that.
He's part of creating the calendar because he's been doing it for years and years and years, so he has historical experience.
I also can't wrap my head around why it's not been presented to teachers prior to it coming to us, and put out there to them for concerns. I just, it doesn't make sense.
What would get you to vote yes?
A different calendar.
But under what changes? I mean, you're sitting here and crapping all over the one that's there, but.
Well, I don't like, and again, I'm just trying to get myself acclimated with why, and we have so many in-service days, so many early dismissals, like twice a month. Exeter has, I counted, I want to say 14.5 in-service days versus other districts have 6 to 9. I don't understand. Is that a contract?
I can explain where we started the half-day listening session.
Why we started with the half-day or early dismissals for the students was when the previous superintendent was here, we were making sure there was an opportunity that the teachers could be engaged with each other as the school year went through to hit on special topics to provide for the most complete education for the students. That was the purpose behind that. It was a really big purpose behind Bev Martin wanting to make sure that we had as much training so they could bring the best opportunities and the best education to students.
So, and that's great if it's being utilized properly, but is that good for our twice a month, them leaving school early and going to God knows where? I mean, maybe it's a great child care, maybe it's with a grandparent, maybe it's home with their parents, but I think couldn't we utilize once a month for a full day, you know, and I know that now we're looking at days and stuff. This is not my job. I should be looking at, and that's where I've started to get myself like crazy. This is not my job to create the calendar. It's my job to approve a quality calendar that suits the community, the educators, and above all, the students. And I don't feel that this calendar suits our students. It's too disruptive. Now we're bringing them in early, but they're still getting out at the same time. And if we add snow days to this, which some are built in, then they're still going to get out at the same time. I just don't understand. And I feel that I haven't been
Any additional comments?
Well, I think, Michelle, Jasmine, sorry. You spent last week about 25 minutes on the subject of the calendar. Now, you sat there and talked. Now, if you were so interested, why didn't you bring to the district what you think should be?
That's not my job.
Well, then why were you going on 25 minutes and saying what? Nothing? I mean, I don't even know what you were saying. You were one, I can't approve this, I can't approve, and you never said why you couldn't approve it and what we would do, what the administration would do in order for you to approve it. Tonight, talking again about the same issues and not having any solutions.
Mrs. Page, do you have any comments about the calendar?
I will approve the calendar because I believe that the administration has tried its best, has worked with the teachers, has done what they can. Well, it didn't sound like
Can I address that
Mr.
real quick?
Ricketts was talking that you thanked the administration.
Can I address that real quick? No?
So did Michelle. Now, I mean, it sounded to me like people said that things were kind of, worked out. At least we were doing it.
To articulate potentially why I'm concerned about is because I can't wrap my head around it. That's what I'm asking for. I'm asking for rationale and validity of why it was created the way it was created. And I do not think it's best for students, community, or the education. And that's why I would say no. And I apologize if I'm rambling. articulated well. I apologize you feel that way, but I care about the majority of what's out there.
Let's give Mr. Ahrens a chance to then, Mark, then we'll have you speak.
What I wanted to say quick is to add clarity to what I said earlier. Tabling allows the administration to come back and recraft it, and then we can take it off the table with the amended version. I'd rather allow the administration the chance to amend this, because it sounds like there's not a whole lot of consensus on the board, certainly not with our employees, about what this calendar should be, and I think it would be a fair gesture to the administration to table them and table it and allow the administration to recraft this proposal rather than voting it down tonight, which I would prefer that we not do. And I think that that's just a fair gesture to them.
If it's voted down, it just comes back up again to another.
Well, they would have to re-propose a new one.
But they'd have to propose one anyway if it's voted down. Right?
Yeah, but if we're talking about the optics of it, like
I'm not talking about the optics about it. I'm just saying, either way, there's another option. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying either way, it has to come back. So, but I understand what you're saying, and that's a fair proposal.
I just wanted to clarify for Ms. Pija. We were given, at our monthly meeting, we were given the proposed calendar. We just had a discussion about that. I had 5 days to think about it, and within that time, I started thinking to myself, what are the problems that are going to happen with this calendar? In that 5 days, we came up with these reasons we think calendar won't work. I immediately contacted Dr. Phillips, said, I don't think this is going to go. What about this? He said he didn't agree with me, which is great. That's fine. Then I said, well, let me send out a mass email to my teachers so that I can see it. Maybe I'm off base. I got many responses. Many people, teachers, any members, agreed that this would not work. Then I emailed Dr. Phillips and said, we have a disagreement. I'm going to email the board, let them know how we feel. And that's where it came on Friday. It was a very quick timeline for me to, do all this. So that's where we are, and we don't agree.
You did get an email with all the different options that we considered.
Yeah, and graciously, he agreed on Friday to meet with Dr. Winters and reconsider. Then on Friday after I left, I got home from school, I got an email saying they reconsidered and they're sticking with their proposal. And that's when I said, okay, then I'm going to contact the board.
Well, and we did outline all the options that we considered, though. It wasn't like we just gave you a one-line thing. We showed you all the reasons why we were going with the calendar.
You did. Once you said you weren't going to reconsider, you showed me all the options that you did consider. So,
okay.
Thank you.
I have a quick question, if I could.
Go ahead.
I don't know if it was stated the reason for needing to adopt the calendar. What was the catalyst?
Well, we were looking at the approved calendar about a week after that. The computer had put in a September 31st. So we lost the day somewhere and we had to pick it up somewhere else. And then we looked at the issues that we had dealt with this year as well.
That got incorporated after
Yes.
realizing you had a day that...
Yeah, so that kicked off the looking at a new calendar.
Any further discussion? Okay, we're going to take a vote on this calendar. All in favor of the calendar say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No. Okay, the motion fails. So, Dr. Phillips, I'm assuming that you'll want to sit down with
Yep.
the reps and your administrative staff and recalibrate the calendar.
Yep, yes we will.
And I think you've heard the feedback.
Yep.
Do you need any further direction from the board in terms of thoughts? Or
No, I've heard from parents and the teachers, and we'll work through with the representation.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move back to the ones that, and thanks folks for coming out this evening, and assuming you're welcome to stay, but we'll move on to our business and back to the beginning of the agenda. Okay, we have two sets of minutes for approval. We've got board workshop minutes from March 13th and board voting minutes from March 27th. I recommend that they're,
Possibility of moving to a consent agenda.
we'll move quickly. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Treasurer's report, Mrs. Page.
I move the treasurer's report for the 3/31/2018. The following financial statements are attached. A year-to-date summary of revenue and expenditures, all funds, statement of assets, liabilities, and balances, payroll and fringe benefits, investment statements, student activity, and athletic plans.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. With several policies that are up for both first and second reading, I won't go through the details because we've done that at our workshop meeting. So I move that policies lettered A through N be approved.
Second. Oh.
Is there any discussion? We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'd like to pull out the motion dealing with vehicles.
Okay, we'll pull out the motion.
So I'll second that amendment.
That's aye. We're pulling out aye. Any others? Okay, so it's A through N with the exception of I. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll have a vote on use of motor vehicles, policy 223. I move that we approve this policy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes. I'd like to look at this and I would like to make an amendment specifically to the item dealing with on school property. I think it should be, somehow we have to have some language built into this. Well, this is my discussion. We have to build in language on here that discusses if it's transportation. Mini bikes, by their nature, are not legal, street legal vehicles. But skateboards are a means of transportation, as are motorcycles, to get back and forth to school. As long as it is a licensed vehicle and operates according to the Pennsylvania license codes, I think it's allowed to be used to get back and forth. I think that if you're trying to prohibit activities that could damage the school property, I think that should be somehow written into these policies.
I'll give you my opinion on this policy as the policy chair. I think we should remove that language entirely in terms of prohibition of skateboards, mini bikes, and motorcycles. We've had conversations with our insurance provider. We've had a review by Sean Lockinger, our attorney, and in both cases there doesn't seem to be any strong rationale for including it in this policy. It wasn't in previously. It's simply a suggestion from PSBA. We also checked with our PSBA rep, who is responsible for policy development and revisions, and it was certainly just a suggestion and not a requirement. So my suggestion would be to approve this policy absent that specific sentence that starts with the board prohibits and ends with school property.
Is that an amendment? Is that an amendment?
That's my suggestion. I would recommend that we amend the policy as such.
Second.
Can you read it out at least to make sure that everybody's clear?
You want me to read the whole policy?
No, just the part you want to take out.
Oh, yeah. The board prohibits the use of skateboards, mini bikes, and motorcycles on school property. That would be eliminated from the policy. Otherwise, it would remain intact. Any further discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. We have a motion. We have a motion. Is there a second? Did we get?
Yes.
We heard a second. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So now we need to
that was on the
approve the
amendment.
policy.
That was on the
Without-
amendment.
That was on the amendment.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to approve the new policy as
Go
revised.
through first reading.
It is for first reading. Yeah, it'll be for first reading. And as amended, I move that we approve the motor vehicles policy as stated. Second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Going to move on to business functions. Mr. Brown.
computer's slow.
Here we go. It's recommended the Board of School Directors accept the audit of Charles I. Diamond, tax collector for Exeter Township, an Exeter Township School District prepared by Reiser Kuntz Lesher, LLP for the period ending 12/31/2016.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
It's recommended the Board of School Directors accept the audit of Susan Eggert, tax collector for the Borough of St. Lawrence and the Exeter Township School District, prepared by Barbicane, Thornton and Company LLP for the period ending 12/31/2016.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
It's recommended the Board of School Directors authorize district administration to dispose of surplus elementary student desks and chairs stored in the administration building through a direct sale to community members or through an auctioneer.
Second. The motion and the second, any discussion?
Andy, do you know when these would be available to the public? Or
Well, I'm gonna meet with an auctioneer tomorrow, to, go over that process, and then we'll make a decision which way to go, and we'll, get it done rather quickly.
so that if open to the public, we would advertise that?
We would
on-
advertise it, put it on the website, and probably do a parent link.
I'm sorry?
A parent link.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
It's recommended the Board of School Directors approves the agreement of understanding with CISPA for the Teachers in the Parks program for up to 300 ETSD students. The agreement is for the period May 1, 2018 through November 30, 2018 at a cost of $25,225.
Second.
The motion and the second, any discussion?
Yes, can you tell me why it starts in May and goes till November, when it's only?
That's the length of the contract.
I know, but,
That's not the length of the program.
I know it's only 5 weeks or something, right?
But it's the length of the contract.
Matt could speak to the issue.
Only to clarify, that is when we start hiring teachers. So that just makes the commitment of hiring, we start hiring in May for June. And then by the time they collect all of that and all the things they need to do, it takes us a good while.
Oh, okay, all right, I just wondered, because I knew you only did it for 5 weeks at the summer.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
It's recommended the Board of School Directors approve the BCIU joint purchase bid for fuels awarded on April 12, 2018. The following is a summary of pricing. See attached tally sheet, yada yada.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Recommended that the Board of School Directors approves budget transfers for the month of March 2018 in the amount of $64,907.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Gill. Personnel Committee, Mr. Japan.
It's recommended the Board of School Directors approves or ratifies the following retirements as certificated staff Cheryl A. Strake and support staff Patricia Vender.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
It is recommended the Board of School Directors approves or ratifies the following appointments under support staff, extracurricular staff, and guest teachers.
Would you guest teachers separately, please, Mr. Chairman?
It is recommended the Board of School Directors approves or ratifies the following appointments for support staff and extracurricular staff.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
It is recommended the Board of School Directors approves or ratifies the following appointments, guest teachers.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the attached list of course requests.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the staff conferences below for a total of $3,033.54.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
I would like to pull out the number 11.
Second. It's the AP course, so that we can discuss it, and then approve the conferences of the other two.
Okay. So we're gonna vote on 10 through 12, or 1 through 10 and then 12. Okay, let's do the motion and a second for that.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
It is recommended the Board of School Directors approve staff conferences for Christina Pinkerton for AP Studio Art Portfolio at the Lewis Advanced Placement Institute in Lewis, Delaware, July 24th to the 27th.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just want to state, based on what we talked about, and I appreciate the comments this evening, but I really felt that it is sending a teacher to a $2,000 conference in Delaware over the summer for this course. It's putting the cart before the horse in this case, in my mind. When we did receive some feedback from after our workshop meeting from Dr. Winters as his secretary, and it stated as long as teachers are certified in their content area and have a valid teaching license in PA, they can teach any AP course approved by the board in that content area. Attending the Summer Institute that the College Board offers for AP courses is strongly recommended as a best practice, but not a requirement. Dr. Winters did professionally speak and said that, as the overseer of curriculum, he would not feel comfortable with having the teacher teach that AP course without attending the Summer Institute. And they need the PD on how to teach the course and how to build the syllabus prior to teaching it in order to be effective, and more importantly, in order to ensure students do as well in the AP exam as possible. It was also stated in that email that it looked like, if I remember correctly, I want to say it was about a total of 14 students that would be requesting that schedule for next year. However, that course is not even approved for next year yet. It would be approved for the 2019, and it's the best indication for the 2019-20 school year that it would still be about, estimated about 14 students. I think it is a very important course. I think it's something that, next year if we approve to be on the course catalog, it's probably a very good option, especially for kids who are artistic and that is their field. I think AP courses are important, and I like that Exeter offers quite a few. I just feel at this time that it's not the proper sequence. So that's my spiel.
I want to give Oliver a different opinion. Though I agree with your position, Jasmine, the fact we're not offering the course, there are many students that take, maybe not many, but there are a number of students who will take an AP exam without having taken an AP course. I feel that having a person on board, an instructor who has had the training to understand what the requirements of that test are and how to go about preparing for it is an asset for the school district. And then we'll be able to leverage that talent in the future as we bring an AP course on. So I think it's a very good thing to bring this in. Second is the teacher is not requiring wages. They're doing this on their free time as long as we compensate them for being present, for the cost of this. So I think this is a good investment for the school district.
And I do agree as well, Jim. My concern is just the sequence of it. And the teacher, yes, needs the course to plan the syllabus and to start creating the course. However, the teacher, from my understanding, from what we asked Mr. Kane last week, is that she is an AP art. She already teaches AP art courses, so she could teach this course. Granted, she wouldn't maybe have the expertise in developing the course fully, but I'm sure that she could reach out to various other teachers in different districts that teach it, and then we can send her for the training, you know, in a timely manner. So I agree with you. I think it's an important course. I'd love to see her go get certified in AP Art Studio, but she can already teach the course. It's not recommended, but it's not prohibited as well.
I'd like to, excuse me. Well,
Dr. McClendon.
yeah, it's not, it's recommended for a reason that they get that training. They have to write the curriculum. If we wait until it is in the course of studies and we are going to prove it, that's too late. And AP, we're all agreeing that AP courses are important and needed and help students, but that teacher needs to be properly trained. So it's recommended, but it's recommended for a reason. In order to be able to write the curriculum and plan how the course is going to be taught in order to meet the AP guidelines.
I guess my biggest concern is just that it's a year away, and so much can happen within a year. And and I had stated this last week, if we need, say, a remedial reading course or a different course, we must, because of a requirement by the state or enrollment or something like that. Now we paid for a course, you know, $2,000, which is not much compared to the budget we, you know, deal with. But now we paid for this teacher to teach this course, but we can't offer the course. So I agree. I just, you know.
Well, why couldn't we offer the course? Because they're going to replace it with the portfolio course that they have. They're not going to run both of them. So
well, yeah, that is an option if we're replacing a different course. I do see what you're saying now.
right. But it's more valuable to have an AP course. For students.
I will definitely be supporting this issue. AP courses not only help the student, the teacher who will be certified in this area will certainly be able to instruct the students in a higher level, and that probably will help those students to get either a 3, 4, and 5, which will then be able to be transferred into their college and be 3 credits toward their college education. So to me, that's a great investment. This is a one-time investment. Once the teacher is certified, she can do the AP courses from now until she retires, and there will be many students that will benefit from getting this on board quickly. So I will be supporting this.
Mr. Aarons.
So I brought this up at the last meeting, and one of the things that I emphasized was path dependency. What path dependency is once you've started down a path and you've already started to invest resources, you're almost committed. And mentally, it's hard for a governing body, the administration, or the faculty to say we're no longer going to do that because we've already invested money. Similar to the decision that we had made at the end of the year with the lawsuit. There were people who stated publicly we wanted to get away from the lawsuit, but we had already invested close to $25,000, and what's the point of dropping a lawsuit when we've already invested this amount of money? I think I have no disagreement whatsoever that AP courses are critical, especially when students are able to use them to leverage smaller loans for college, which I myself am looking at more than $60,000 worth of debt, and you know that's painful. This course wouldn't be taught this year. We would definitely need the teacher, in my opinion, to take the AP course, the AP training in the summer in order to be able to teach the course. With that said though, I do not like the way that we do this. And for this reason, I will be voting against this conference. I think that we need to be very careful about how we commit ourselves ahead of time before the board has formally gotten to approve something. We were earlier this evening talking about our cyber program. There were concerns that board members haven't fully been made aware of all these decisions, and yet we have put in place a $177,000 position through an earlier budget that has not yet been filled to give the administration the ability to start advertising it at when they desire, and that still needs to come for board approval. But what we're going to be told is we got somebody for $90,000, which is $20,000 less than our budget, so this is a great deal. And in my opinion, that's the exact definition of path dependency. So I think that we really need to step away from that type of activities, and I will be voting no for this.
I'd like to say that when I'm looking at this position, I'm thinking that This year, Christina Pinkerton is willing to take the course because of whatever her life situation is. At this time, she has that time available. We are not guaranteed that next year she wakes up and says, you know, this summer I'm going to be traveling Europe. At this time, we have an individual who's making their time available. I think it is the correct thing to move along the path we're looking at, having the individual trained, and it will bring a bigger asset to us. And then when we are planning to adjust our catalog, we will know that we have the professional resource in place with all the training that will bring the best possible teacher to the classroom.
Jim, I want to touch on something that you said, and I do want to thank Mrs. Pinkerton for being willing to take this course on her own time, and I think that that should be commended, just as it should be for any of the teachers who decide to do so. What I would say, though, is this is the district's money, taxpayers' money, that is reimbursing a teacher for a course that we have not yet committed ourselves to pay for. And I think for that reason, we need to put one shoe in front of the cart.
One shoe in front of the cart?
One shoe in front of the other in the proper order of doing this. And I appreciate what you're saying, and a lot of it I agree with. You know, I made my case.
Will Ms. Pinkerton acquire any CEUs or any kind of other educational credits for this course?
She'll receive the AP certification.
So which is another credit. Accreditation.
Or she could leave and go to a different district and teach it.
You
know, but that's what,
Anybody can go anywhere if they want, it's a free will economy.
I agree, and I think it would be great that we helped her, establish her resume, but, I also feel that we need to stop playing the, what if game as well, and look at the current facts, and I don't know, that's it.
Well, their current facts, the current facts are.
Excuse me, we have a request to call the question. Is there any objection?
Actually, I read up on that the other day. You actually need a second on that, and it has to be a 2/3 approval for all the vote.
That's only if somebody objects to the question of the chair.
Now that's anytime you call the question.
I didn't get the same interpretation when I read through Robert's rules, but maybe we should have that conversation another time.
We'll let it pass.
Give me a pass this time. Okay. All in favor of this conference, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Kind of a show of hands for no. Motion carries. Thank you. Student functions, Mrs. Stratton.
It is reported that the below field trips are approved within a 60-mile radius. Sorry, my computer lost what I was doing. And the below field trips within a 60-mile radius, beyond a 60-mile radius, are recommended to be approved by the Board of School Directors.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah,
Mrs. Page.
I just want to know, who are the High Cross Road students? It says senior high Cross Road students, what group is that?
The Crossroads students are our special education program for our 18 to 21-year-olds.
Oh, okay, great. I never heard that, and I just want to know. Thank you very much, Mr. Dr. Moore.
Any further discussion?
I have a question. I know, as being the chairperson for student functions, I was approached about taking out the field trips that occur within a 60-mile radius. So when I look at them, I'm maybe not as concerned. And not that I'm concerned, I just have a question about why the field trips that are listed there, and then also the field trips that are listed beyond a 60-mile radius, frequently some of them have occurred, or they're occurring very soon after. Yeah, and I think the main reason that this comes to my attention is because, my son, a field trip permission was sent home several weeks ago for his class, and it's taking place in May, and it still hasn't been on here yet. Now, I believe it's within 60 miles, so we don't have to approve it, but I just find the order in which these are placed on here kind of odd, and I think it kind of goes back to that position. It kind of goes back to hiring this, this teacher taking this AP course, and so this is kind of I feel like we're constantly approving and talking about things that are in the past, so.
I think the field trips within 60 miles it's a report, so there's no approval required. And I'm looking here, I'm seeing all the, maybe I'm wrong here, field trips beyond 60 miles are to come. I mean, they're future, they're not
Yes.
retroactive.
Yes, and I completely agree with
That's what we're
that.
approving.
Yeah, but my point is, so my son that's within a 60-mile radius, I as a parent have known about it now for several weeks, so why didn't we report on that this month instead of waiting till May, when it will have already, I think, occurred, I'm not 100% sure on the date. But then looking at the ones beyond a 60-mile radius, this one takes place tomorrow, so what if we say no to it? Are they not gonna go? I mean, what's the point in us voting on something, and I don't see why we would say no, but if we said no, are we gonna all of a sudden tell them tonight at 9:30 that they can't go tomorrow?
That's the chance they take by putting it on that late, you're right.
But who's putting it on that late?
But didn't we know about it before last week?
But we didn't vote on it.
You can create a field trip a week before. I thought you needed like so many days, especially for nursing, the nurse.
And I mean, I have no problem with any of these events that are on here. I just feel like, you know, if I as a parent know about a field trip 3 weeks, well, by the time this one gets on the agenda, it will be in May. I knew about it as a parent a month and a half before. What's the holdup of getting it on this agenda for all of us to know about it too? I don't.
The request is to get it on as early as possible.
I will look into why they're so long getting to the agendas.
Aren't the ones that are within 60 miles, isn't that just a kind of a courtesy to these board members to let
Well, it is,
them
but I'm
know?
hearing we'd like to have them on anyway.
Well, I'm just saying, that was always like just a courtesy.
It is, but the point is, it's becoming a habit with the ones that are within 60 miles and the ones that are beyond. That's all. So yes, we're not voting on it, but there's also still no reason why we can't know about it sooner. Because like I said, I as a parent already know about it, so what's the holdup?
Okay, so item 10B, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves August 23rd, 2017 as an Act 80 day for professional development in the 2017-2018 school calendar.
Should that have to be taken out?
That's for this year.
That was already occurred as well.
17, I'm sorry.
Any further discussion?
Can we just again, I'm pretty sure we had clarification last week, but is this so our seniors can graduate earlier? I mean, on time?
Well, not to go on time, but they wouldn't have to come an extra day and we don't have to extend.
So that's what this day is being used for? Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Athletic Committee, Mr. Ernst.
One big thing that I want to celebrate this evening is for Simone Foster, who today was the WEEU Player of the Week.
Did she wrestle Hulk Hogan?
Simone set the Berks County record in the 100-meter hurdle at an invitational meet on Saturday. She also won the 300 intermediate hurdles. I'm sorry, I don't know enough about track and field to know what IM stands for, but the 300 IM hurdles. Intermediate? Okay. The 300 intermediate hurdles, the long jump, and was part of the 400-meter relay win for the Eagles as well. She maintains a 96 average in the classroom and is a member of the National Honor Society as well. So it's something to celebrate when our athletes are also extremely well focused in the classroom. So if we can give a hand for her. I don't know if I'm stealing Mr. Brady's thunder, but could we get a report on how the softball field is coming?
Sure. All the fencing was completed today. There's a few items that remain as far as my own personal punch list. I haven't done a final punch list with the contractor yet. Those items will be addressed shortly. The major one being the bench is loose in the third base dugout. That came detached. It came detached.
The girls sat on it.
Yeah. So I did reach out to the contractor once I learned of that, and that will be addressed tomorrow morning. So after that's completed, the other remaining punch list items won't impact the usage of that field, so it can begin to be utilized if it dries, if it doesn't rain for
Yeah, those are
I just wanted to add, we found out from Mr. Legath tonight as well. The girls' track team defeated Wilson, and I think we ended their 56 or 57 win streak. So that was a big win for the girls as well.
That concludes my report.
Thanks, Mr. Hens. Curriculum Committee, Mrs. Hacker.
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves August 23rd. Wait, sorry, my computer's slow. Just on there. Yeah. It is recommended that the Board of School Directors authorizes the Assistant Superintendent to submit to the Pennsylvania Department of Education, contingent on federal and state funding, the following grants for the 2018-2019 school year: Title I, Title II, Title III, and Ready to Learn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Is that all for curriculum?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, should I announce our next meeting? I think I did last
May
time. May 8th is our 6 o'clock curriculum meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Hacker. Facilities Committee, Mr. Brady.
It is recommended the Board of School Directors awards the bid for chiller system equipment for Jacksonville Elementary School, Lorraine Elementary School to Energy Transfer Solutions LLC. The lowest responsible bidder in the total amount of $396,492. The results were as follows, as listed in the document.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Question.
Mr. Brady.
Was there a discrepancy in the details of the specifications that we would have a 96,000 plus renter? Or is it just that one was more competitive than the other?
I can answer that. We did notice that difference and went back to KCBA and SDE, making sure that that wasn't the case, that there wasn't something missed and that it was a responsible bid. Their response to us were that there were some factors to attribute to the price difference. One of them was the timing. The higher bidder had a longer lead time for the equipment, so we could be possibly paying for a premium to meet those deadlines. The overall design, the winning bidder, much of the required specifications were standard on their equipment, and they were add-ons or customizations to the other piece of equipment. So those are some of the factors that probably went in, and they originally thought that the low bidder would still win. Just they were not completely surprised by the amount, so they feel comfortable that it's a responsible bid. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
So just given we're coming off of the softball field and the 108-day delay on that, what is the process going to be to manage this undertaking to ensure that we are, first of all, that we put an enforceable contract in place, and secondly, that we are project managing the project to ensure that we're meeting timelines?
Okay, and you can discuss the contract, that would be through KCBA and the general contractor, correct?
That's right. I mean, we're purchasing the equipment at the recommendation of KCBA just to get it started, fabricated. Now there'll be a GC and a couple other contractors part of the bid. The general contractor, KCBA, Rob, there will be all of that expertise there in navigating through it. Any of the specifications, front end, they've been reviewed by our attorney, our solicitor,
And that would be the contract. As far as the oversight, Mr. Brazili will be doing daily checks and presenting me with a weekly update that I'll be presenting to the board, as well as a monthly progress report that we'll be sharing with the board.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
One other issue, we will have our next facilities committee meeting on Monday, April 30th at 6:30 p.m. at Lorraine Elementary School. We'll be meeting in the library to start the evening.
Lorraine Elementary. Thank you. Personnel Committee, Mr. Trevino.
I do not have any updates at this time. I do appreciate the efforts of Don and Napoli to try to get me together with Christine, and then you and I have to talk afterwards related to your text.
Right. Thanks, Mr. Chapina. Policy Committee, no report at this time. However, we continue to reflect on a proposal to make some modifications to the homeschool policy. Technology Committee, Mrs. Peja.
I have no report except to say that on April 26th, we are going to have the STEM fair here at Ruston, and it starts at 6 p.m. I think, Dr. Phelps, right? And I would hope that all the community comes out and sees all the great things that the kids are doing with technology from little on up to 8th grade. I think it goes to 8th grade. I don't think the senior high is involved in this thing.
We have a lot of the students that help.
Yeah. Oh, they help get everything set up. Yeah. I mean, it's a great. You'd be surprised at what these kids can do, you know, at a young level, you know, an early age. So I encourage everyone to come out, and you won't be disappointed. I guarantee.
Thanks, Mrs. Peja. Education Foundation, Mrs. Hacker.
Yes, the ECEF will present $10,500 in EITC donations to Dr. Winters this month. $9,500 will be used for EITC designated specific projects, aka STEM-based, and $1,000 will be used for special education funding needs. Additionally, ECEF's yearly teacher mini-grant submission period opened on April 10th and is running until May 4th. Last year, 11 teacher mini-grants totaling $5,364 were supported by ECEF for the teachers and schools in Exeter Township School District. Last week, the junior high received a donation via an ECEF donor. Kate Sowers and Eric Flam worked together with ECEF to obtain 6 green screens kits, an item on their long-term wish list. Smaller ticket items and needs of teachers in the district have been placed on an Amazon wish list by searching for Exeter Community Education Foundation on Amazon.com. Today, 4/17, marked our first delivery of gifts via this wish list. And I would suggest anybody that uses Amazon a lot, you can actually, I think it's called the Smile Foundation or something like that. Make sure that you're on there, and you can just search for Exeter Community Ed Foundation, and proceeds go back to the ECEF. So just an easy way, if you're buying stuff anyway, helps the ECEF. Lastly, mark your calendars for February, August 3rd. ECEF's 11th annual golf tournament will be held at the Reading Country Club. Sponsorships are available. You can take one and pass this down. If anyone needs a flyer, please see me after the meeting, or I'm going to give you some now, and I have extra. The goal this year is to net $28,000. So, cool event, and I'll have, a lot of our ECF members will have ball drop tickets, and you can win prizes and money, and obviously it's for a good cause. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Hacker.
Do you have any idea how much money the foundation has given to the school district since the beginning of the school year?
I do not, but I can get you that information.
I think that would be a good thing for the citizens to know, you know, how much the foundation is supporting, you know, the school district. Thanks.
I just want to say publicly, if I can, Amy Lutz does an amazing job. I mean, you know, I've had the opportunity to work very closely with her in getting different funding, you know, for the district, and she is always thinking about, you know, what the foundation can do to support the education of students and teachers in Exeter. And so, you know, I don't think Amy's here tonight, but I just wanted to say that as part of Jasmine's report, because she's been great to work with.
Thank you for that information. And I believe also at the STEM fair they are going to be I don't know if working with Dairy Queen or in addition to that, giving serving ice cream.
Dairy Queen.
Yes. Sundays. So come get your sundae.
And also, the STEM Fair is partnering with the pre-K classes for the Governor's Institute, and they'll be handing out books and so forth, and a little bit of a craft tables in the gym. So we sort of created a partnership with that as well for that night.
Also, the pre-K and even getting involved. That's
They're doing a make and take called the Kindergarten Carnival.
Oh, that's great.
Is that all, Mrs. Hacker?
Yes,
Thank you. BCTC Joint Operating Committee, Dr. McClellan.
And we met Wednesday, March 28th. Last week you received the committee briefs in your packet. And on there it listed a number of, well, not a number, but several changes to programs for the 2018-2019 school year. They're either eliminating, combining, or making some changes. So they're in that brief. Let's see. The dinner that they had for the board was very nice, and it was prepared by one of our very own seniors, so I wanted to acknowledge him, Gavin Parrish. That was his senior not prepared by him, but he had to organize it. That was his senior project. We toured the cosmetology. So they had, I'm not sure when they finished the renovations, but they have renovated. It's really nice, and I'm gonna try to drum up some business for them. So I brought along their price list. So maybe we could help to support our students there, and also give them an opportunity to work on real people instead of just mannequin heads. And they have it's, huh? Yeah, I have something down there. So they're really cheap prices during the day though, so you can go back because you're and they are. It's going to be next year is going to be their 50th anniversary, so they're planning a lot of really special things for the next school year, like a VIP breakfast with legislators. You know, they want to invite board members, like open house, golf tournaments, fighting, alumni night at the Fighting Philly. So they have a lot of things that they're working on to celebrate their 50th anniversary. I guess that's it. And we have our next meeting on the 25th of April.
Thanks, Dr. McClellan. Thank you. BCIU Board of Directors, the BCIU Board will be meeting this coming Thursday evening. That'll be our next meeting. Legislative Liaison, Mr. Gallo.
No report, sir, but maybe you should tell us something about when you and Hunter went down to Harrisburg yesterday.
Yeah, we're going to plan to do that. If this is a good time, we can certainly report back. I think there were over 110 board members throughout Pennsylvania who attended this advocacy day on the steps of the, or actually the rotunda. It was this just earlier this week, and yesterday. Wow, time flies. So we.
How you know you're getting old?
I know. It's just yesterday. So you know, we were given a brief orientation by Mr. Callahan, who's the PSBA lobbyist, as well as the PIIU representative who co-sponsored the event. And then we had an opportunity to go visit our respective legislators. Our most successful visit was with Senator Judy Schwenk. She was extremely accommodating for us, and she was a great listener, was very interested in what we were doing, and expressed her high degree of support for school districts and everything she could do to kind of advance public education in Pennsylvania. A little disappointing that we were not able to meet with any other legislators. Two legislators seemed to be particularly difficult to access. They were Mr. Maloney and Mr. Gillen. Both seemed to be in their offices, but were unwilling to see us. Mr. Rossi was out sick, and Mr. Joswiak had another commitment at the Capitol. But otherwise, I mean, we thought it was very informative. It was our show of support and strength. There was at noon there was an opportunity for a press conference, and we attended that and had our pictures taken. And you know, I think it was really an excellent demonstration of how important it is for us to advocate on behalf of public education. We talked about Senate Bill 2. When we went in to talk to folks, we talked about funding and basic ed subsidies. We talked about a few other bills, such as the one reflecting the way districts would appeal assessments, you know, for properties, and we were expressing our concern about that particular piece of legislation. There are a few other things we talked about as well, but overall, I thought it was an excellent opportunity for us to show strength as a group of board directors. So thanks for asking the question. Anything else, Hunter, that I maybe didn't cover? Okay. Township Borough Liaison, Mr. Chapina.
I do not have any report, and I have not scheduled the next meeting with Exeter Township. I will report back when I do that.
Thank you. Payment requests, Mrs. Peugeot.
Oh, well, we have some requests for payments from the total payments from the general fund of $676,960.15. So I suggest that we pay our bills and pass this measure.
I just had a question.
Oh, we have a second. We have a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just had a question. As I'm starting to look at these are all things that go through you, right? And you've approved these things. Clearly, if they're on here.
Right. Myself, the assistant business manager, and any other supervisor who approves the purchase. So it goes through different levels of approval.
Okay. And one other quick question, you mentioned this earlier in the budget, of course now I don't see it. It's that private insurance or something like that, X-Flex or something, is that what that is? X-Flex. Can you just give me a little brief explanation of what that is? Is that what truly it is?
A benefit in the contract where out-of-pocket expenses are reimbursed. An allocation of $900 is given on an annual basis, and it would cover, like I said, out-of-pocket things not, well, some contracts don't have vision, eye care, your co-pays, things that their health insurance doesn't cover. So it's for full-time employees. And it has sunset for administrators and professional staff. The support union will have it through 1920, but it will sunset then.
Johnson, I also want to let you know that as treasurer, I also go down the Friday before the voting meeting, and I go through like about 10% of the different receipts for, make sure that they match up with, what we're really paying for. So sometimes we catch a few things right in, sometimes So I try to do a very thorough business on that. So it's been, and of course, too, like Mr. Judy might do something, Dr. Miller might check out things, like maybe Joe Way might check out things, if they're doing things, so there's a lot of checks. Her assistant also checks over, so we're very well checked out as far as matching the bills with the payments.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Superintendent's report, Dr. Phillips.
Thank you, Dr. Humber. I have a few things to report tonight. Dorothy Liu, a grade 6 student at Rifton School, received special recognition for her entry into the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board Alcohol Awareness Poster Contest. It just recently took place. It was the 26th annual. She received special recognition for that. Mr. Kane sent me an email, and I won't go through the whole process, but it's from a Haney's Dietrich. He's the Newton and Adelaide Bergner Professor in Instrumental Music at Lebanon Valley College. And he started it out with, I had the great pleasure of hearing Micah Albrecht, who was our orchestra teacher at the high school. Hearing Micah's orchestra performance last night as part of the String Adjudication Festival, it's getting late, that was held at Governor Mifflin High School. I had the good fortune to hear and work with this group a number of times over the course of the last 2 decades. There is no question that under Micah's leadership, they are doing some exceptional work. I should also add that Micah shows great promise as a conductor. Please do extend my congratulations to Micah and all the string students who in your school can be really proud of the work they did. Also, the Soda Club. The Soda Club officers, Madeline Valoria, Cassidy Vangary, Katrina Whitman, and Kylie Nettleton presented a check to the K-9 unit, as well as this year's Exeter Got Talent show featured various acts on March 27th in the high school auditorium. And that's how they raise their money. Thank you.
That's all for your report? I just want to mention that this Thursday evening at 7 p.m. will be our community forum that will be held at Riften. Hope folks can come out for that. Also that we're going to be holding an executive session following this meeting for personnel reasons. Are there any other board members who would like to be heard at this time? I'm sorry, let's start with Dr. Miller.
Just a quick reminder, our district is hosting the County Special Olympics this Friday. Weather looks good, it's a little cold, but we will have about 9 school districts here, over 200 students in Special Olympics participating in track.
What time, Dr. Miller?
8:30, it'll start at 8:30.
A.m.
8:30 a.m. The actual opening ceremony, kids will be arriving at 8:30. The actual opening ceremony was carrying the torch and the whole 9 yards at 9:30, and then awards and medals at 1:30.
Would we be able to get an email just with the specifics? Yeah, as a reminder.
Yes.
That would be great to the board.
Please come if you can, it's going to be a wonderful event.
Thank you. Mr. Ahrens.
I just wanted to share quickly that I just got a notification that former First Lady Barbara Bush passed away this evening. And I think, our thoughts and prayers should be with the Bush family. And, I expect that the school district will be flying the flag at half-staff tomorrow morning. Just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Mr. Ahrens. Any other board members who would like to be heard at this time?
Yes, I just wanted, I had mentioned this at the board retreat, but I just wanted to kind of request it again, that we have more chairs for people when they come, more agendas for people when they come, and if it'd be possible, if there's attachments that we can see on our computers, that they're up there on the screen, so the people in the audience can see that. And then, because I'm a crazy recycling person, I would love to see a recycling bin, so when people leave, if they don't want their agendas, they can throw it in a recycling bin versus in the trash.
Those are great recommendations, thank you. Any other comments from board members?
Well, I just want to know, are we going to be doing anything for Arbor Day, which is coming up next, is it the 26th or something in this month?
Earth Day.
Earth Day, yes.
I thought we were. On the 21st, on Saturday, we're doing a cleanup down the river trail.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's welcome from 8 to 1.
8 to 1. So where do you get on the river trail at?
Scenic River Trail on Gibraltar?
Yes.
Right next to the construction.
I'm sorry, where's the reason? Where is it?
Down Gibraltar Road, where they're doing the construction on the new, on what's gonna be the new bridge.
Oh, okay.
There's a parking lot right there, there's a trail that goes like all the way to the
Oh,
right.
okay. I knew there was one down there.
Yeah, and it's actually being helmed by Christy Coble and her Chick-fil-A Leadership Academy kids.
At this time, I'll accept a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion.
You don't need a second.
We're adjourned. Thank you.